You are a squire to a dead knight, as were your father and grandmother before you. Today, for the first time in generations, the councillors reached an agreement: the invaders cannot be reasoned with. Unseal the tombs. On the stained glass windows, paintings, and tapestries, the Evernights looked like they were just sleeping. Serene, beautiful faces with lips half curled in a smile reassured the meek that someone was there to shield them from harm when invaders threatened their homes. They were a symbol of eternal duty and devotion to peace. They were heroes. When I looked at mine in person, what I saw was a weapon. He was hairless and pale. His eyes had rotted away during the squireship of my grandmother when old embalming techniques had proven insufficient to delay time's rightful due. A thin mouth curled into a strange grimace, giving me a glimpse of a set of eerily perfect teeth. My father, ever the practical man, had shifted his focus from preserving frail and largely useless flesh to maintaining the armor and axe of the Evernight. I followed in his footsteps. I'd never had much choice. The council called the tombs of the Evernight sealed. They didn't want to put any more emphasis than necessary on the work of squires like myself. They didn't want the populace to think of their eternal heroes being routinely protected from cobwebs, dust, and rust. I'd been venturing into the little stone cave to perform my duties about once a month since I was child, first with my father, now alone. Today's visit was unscheduled. You'd be surprised at how shallow the sleep of a dead man is. When I'd first seen him stir in that crude stone niche, I must have screamed as hard as my little lungs allowed me. Now the casual shifts and even occasional murmurings were familiar, almost comforting. Still, there was a ritual to make an Evernight fully awaken and rise to battle. The wolves were at the door and villages burned, so the council demanded I, along with every other squire to every other knight, perform it. It was time for legends to march. I lit the incense and began to pray. This was not needed, but it helped calm the thumping in my chest. It seemed prudent to ask the gods for help, but I wasn't sure what I dreaded more, that the Evernight wouldn't awaken or that he would. By the time I was born, the last squire to have done this had been long dead. There was no guarantee that the old magic still worked. With a heavy sigh, I took out the knife. It was one quick cut, right across my palm, just like my father taught me. With so much fear coursing through me, the pain barely stung at all. I lifted my fist to the Evernight's desiccated mouth and squeezed out a few droplets, reciting words in an old language of my ancestors. "O blood of mine, forever cursed to dream, rise and protect me." I backed away towards the far wall and waited, counting seconds with my shallow breaths. The worst part was how silently he moved. A tall man clad in full armor walking out of a pit of stone should have made some noise. I expected a clattering of metal as he grabbed his helmet and axe and marched towards me, but he glided out more like a specter than a ghoulish decomposing body. In just 3 steps he crossed the length of the tomb and approached me. 2 hollow pits drilled into me as a steel gauntlet rose to my face. As I tried to press myself into the rock of the cave, he placed his armored hand on my cheek and looked at me for a long agonizing minute, searching for something that wasn't quite there. It seemed weird to suggest that an emptiness, a void in place of eyes, could look so confused. From behind his white teeth a single word echoed in a strange wail, a word in that same old language my father taught me. "Daughter." Without another sound, the Evernight put on his helmet, turned towards the exit, and left his tomb.